I'm Daniel.
The courtroom was filled with tension as the lawyer's voice boomed. Mrs. Isabella Thompson, do you admit that you manipulated your late husband into leaving his entire $3.5 million estate to you, leaving his only son with nothing? I sat there, my heart pounding, watching my grandmother, a 70-year-old woman in a simple lavender dress, her white hair neatly pulled back, sitting calmly, without saying a word. My mother, Olivia, smirked from the plaintiff's table. She was always so calculating, always looking for the next advantage. My father, Henry, stood with his arms crossed, his face full of disdain as he stared at Grandma like she was a nuisance. This was the same look they'd given her ever since my grandfather, Arthur, passed away. They treated her like an old burden, casting her aside without a second thought. I remember thinking how different they were from the loving grandparents I grew up with. I was raised in a middle-class family in Seattle. My father worked in corporate finance, always chasing the next big deal, and my mother was a high-end real estate agent, obsessed with status and money. We lived in a large house in a fancy neighborhood, with all the latest gadgets and a luxury car in the driveway. My grandparents, on the other hand, lived in a small cottage in the suburbs. Grandpa Arthur was a mechanic all his life, and Grandma Isabella was a schoolteacher before she retired. They had a small vegetable garden and an old-fashioned picket fence. I used to love spending my weekends at their place, helping Grandpa in the garage and baking cookies with Grandma. But to my parents, my grandparents were just a source of embarrassment. Every holiday, my mother would complain, "Do we really have to go to that shabby place? It's so unhygienic and old-fashioned." My father would just grunt in agreement. They only visited when they needed something, like when they wanted Grandpa to fix their car for free, or when they needed someone to babysit me so they could go on their expensive vacations. One day, I overheard my parents talking. "They're so useless. They've never had any real money. We'll be stuck taking care of them when they're old," my mother said. "If we're lucky, that cottage might sell for a bit of money," my father replied. I was shocked and hurt. How could they be so cold-hearted? Then, in September 2022, Grandpa had a heart attack. Grandma called my father in a panic. "Henry, your father is in the hospital. Can you come?" My father looked at his watch and said, "It's late. I have an important meeting tomorrow. I'll come in the morning." I couldn't believe my ears. I quickly got dressed and drove to the hospital alone. When I arrived, Grandma was sitting outside the ICU, crying. She looked so frail and alone. I hugged her tightly, trying to comfort her. My parents showed up much later, looking annoyed. Traffic was terrible. "We had to reschedule some important appointments," my mother said. My father then brought up the idea of a DNR. "It might be better to let him go peacefully. The hospital bills are piling up," he said. Grandma was horrified.
He's still alive.
"How can you even suggest this?" I stood up and shouted, "This is Grandpa, not a financial problem." But my parents just ignored me. Grandpa stayed in the hospital for 4 weeks. Grandma was there every day, sitting by his bedside, holding his hand and talking to him. My parents visited only a couple of times, mainly to discuss the financial situation with the doctors. I came after work every day, bringing Grandma home, cooked meals, and trying to keep her spirits up. One night, Grandma squeezed my hand and said, "Danielle, you're the only one who really cares. I know what they want. They think we have hidden wealth. Maybe it's better they think we're poor." I didn't understand what she meant at the time. Grandpa passed away on a rainy October morning. Grandma was with him until the end. I arrived just in time to hold his other hand. My parents? They were on a business trip in New York. We couldn't cancel. It was a crucial deal, my mother said over the phone. After the funeral, my parents started talking about selling the cottage. "The estate has to be divided. It's the law," my father said. Grandma was heartbroken. "This is my home. I've lived here for 40 years, she said. I asked if there was a will. Grandma said yes, but she hadn't filed it yet. My father scoffed. "If there's a will, it'll take months to go through probate. And I'm sure Dad was fair. He'd leave something for his son." Grandma just sat there, silent. The next few months were filled with tension. My parents filed paperwork to start the probate process. They couldn't find the will, and Grandma said she didn't know where it was. In February 2023, the cottage was put on the market. Grandma was given notice to move out within 60 days. She found a small, run-down apartment in a rough part of town. It was cold, damp, and smelled of mold. But she tried to be brave. "I'll be okay, Danielle. I just need some time to adjust," she said. My parents didn't offer any help. They used the money from the sale of the cottage to pay off some of their debts and buy a new yacht. On Mother's Day, I asked my father if he was taking Grandma out for dinner.
No.
She got her share. "She can take care of herself," he said. I was furious. That was her and Grandpa's money. "You've been so cruel to her," I shouted. Over the next year, I was the only one who visited Grandma. My parents didn't even call her. At Thanksgiving and Christmas, she wasn't invited to our house. I'd bring her to my small apartment, and we'd have a simple meal together. I could see the pain in her eyes, but she always tried to smile for me. In January 2024, Grandma fell in her apartment. She called me, not my parents. I took her to the hospital. The doctor said she needed physical therapy, and I took on the responsibility of driving her to and from the sessions. One day, while waiting for Grandma at the physical therapy center, I found an article about revocable living trusts. I started reading out of curiosity and learned that Grandpa could have set up a trust to transfer his assets directly to Grandma, bypassing probate. I remembered Grandma's words and asked her if Grandpa had set up a trust. She hesitated for a moment and then said, "Yes, he did. Before he died, he set up a revocable living trust. He left everything to me. The trust matures 2 years after his death." I was stunned. "But why didn't you tell Dad? Why did you let them take the cottage money?" I asked. She said, "I wanted to see their true colors. I wanted to know how they'd treat me when they thought I had nothing. And they've shown me." I was angry and sad at the same time. I couldn't believe my parents' behavior. And I was in awe of Grandma's strength and wisdom. In November 2024, 3 weeks before the trust was set to mature, my parents received a notice from a law firm in downtown Seattle. It informed them that Grandma was the sole beneficiary of Grandpa's $3.5 million estate, which would be transferred to her on December 18th. My parents were furious. "That old woman tricked us. She's been hiding money all along," my mother shouted. They decided to sue, claiming that Grandma had manipulated Grandpa into creating the trust. And that's how we ended up in the courtroom. As the trial progressed, Grandma's lawyer, Mr. Lee, a brilliant and experienced Asian American attorney in his 50s, presented a mountain of evidence. He showed the trust document, which was properly notarized. He also presented medical records proving that Grandpa was of sound mind when he created the trust. There were also bank records showing that my father had borrowed $60,000 from Grandpa in 2017 and never repaid it. Instead, he'd used the money to buy a new sports car. Text messages between my parents were presented, showing their greed and their plans to get control of Grandma's assets. The judge, an imposing African-American woman in her 60s, listened carefully to all the evidence. After a long deliberation, she banged her gavel and said, "The lawsuit is dismissed. The trust is valid. Mrs. Isabella Thompson is the rightful beneficiary of the estate." My parents were shocked and speechless. They sat there, looking like defeated statues. Grandma stood up, looking calm and dignified. "I didn't do this for the money. I did this for my dignity and to show that love and loyalty are more important than greed," she said. After the trial, Grandma decided to use the money to buy a new house near me. She also planned to travel the world, something she and Grandpa had always dreamed of. And she set up a trust fund for me to help me with my future plans. I'm so proud of my grandmother. She taught me that real family isn't about blood, but about who stands by you in difficult times. And I've decided to cut off all ties with my parents. They've shown their true colors, and I don't want them in my life. Looking back, I know that this whole experience has made me a stronger person. And I'll always cherish the love and wisdom that Grandma has given me.